football, basketball, baseball, and more. Your source for ACC sports is ACC Nation. Available on podcast, streaming radio, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe.
Welcome to ACC Nation. Will Ojanen, Jim Quist, and a look at ACC sports. The big thing going on now is the CFP, and Miami has had a run that has taken them to the championship, and they'll be going up against Indiana on January 19th. Looks like an exciting game. Indiana absolutely pummeled their opponents, and I think they were trying to send a message, maybe send a little fear factor toward Miami. I'm not so sure that's going to work, though. I was looking back, and Miami has defeated in the first playoff game, it was Texas A&M, 10-3. So we got one SEC team out of the way. Then it got rid of the former number one and champ, Ohio State, in the Cotton Bowl with a 24-14 win. And then the last SEC team standing bit the bullet in the Fiesta Bowl, 31-27 the final score there. So this team has resilience, and it's just they just keep coming back, and you can't keep them down. And it's just like, it feels like they're destined to win something big. The question is, Indiana also feels this way, and are they the team that's going to roll over? Probably not, and allow Miami to get a national championship.
You know, that Ole Miss game, like I wasn't looking at stats live as it was going on, and I went back and looked at it and realized Miami had the ball for over 41 minutes of that game.
That's just domination.
They ended up running a total of 88 plays, 51 runs. So I guess you could say it was death by 1,000 cuts.
Ooh, okay.
But like that is what it is. This is Miami football. They dominate in the trenches. They won this game because of their offensive line. It's Mario Cristobal's bread and butter. That's the way he has been as a coach and recruiter since he really got his first significant gig at Oregon. He's gonna have, God, like 3-4 first round picks, maybe. I think Malagoa, Bain for sure. I think Mesidor, and there's somebody else on the offensive line. I'm not, his name's not coming to me right now, but if they don't get drafted in the first round, he'll be drafted definitely in day two. But
right.
But you have a back like Mark Fletcher who can carry the load 133 yards in this game. Carson Beck looked, pretty good, 268 yards, including that game-winning rushing touchdown, which is a very heads-up play by him, escaping the pocket and running when it looked like there was nothing there. Credit to the bully ball of Miami because, quite frankly, you look at the stats, they held Ole Miss to 398 yards, but you look at it, they averaged 6.6 yards per play. So that's not good, but on the positive, they also held Ole Miss to 2 of 10 on third downs. Trinidad Chambliss looked really good in this game for Ole Miss, but in the end, it just wasn't enough. And we talk about the trench play. We talk about the fact that so many members of that Ole Miss defensive staff left to go to Ole Miss because they're now, they were part of the new LSU staff, so they went to do that. And they weren't there for this, where they were the other couple of games. So that probably had a factor in it too. But doesn't matter. Doesn't matter in the scorebook. All that matters is Miami won, and they're going to play for the national championship.
That's right. And the look, I'll just a lot of people will say, well, if you say the U is back, then that means that they're going to continue with whatever it is they're doing. I say the U is back because they are where they are, period. Whether they win a national championship or not, this team has emerged, and it has been building for some time. And they've stumbled along the way. They have made us very skeptical. Every time we've ever spoken with Manny Navarro, who's also been skeptical about whether the U is back. For years, we've been talking about that. And, it got to a point where it was almost a joke. And I just felt like this year was it. And so far, playing out that way. So congratulations to Canes and Canes fans who've been holding on for centuries for something to happen. It seems like
And
centuries, doesn't it?
yeah, let me just throw this in here while we're on the subject, Jim. Just looking at Miami's 2026 recruiting class, their top pick is a five-star, or the top signees as one of the top players. I'm just pulling up on three
Sure.
right now, rivals. He was the number two player, Jackson Cantwell, five-star. Their third best recruit, a defensive lineman. Um, they're just like they have a four-star edge who's like a borderline top 150 player. Their rank is eighth nationally, and yeah, they really haven't gotten to the transfer portal for this recruit for the to add on to it. They're going to be in the mix for there. I think Sam Levitt visited Miami. They might get another visit from another prestigious quarterback out there. Who knows? But I the identity is there, and we'll see because Malachi Tony's going to be there for 2 more years. Once he's on the junior year, he's going to the NFL.
Oh yeah.
That's the secret weapon. That's and I think he deserves a lot of credit for Miami's success on offense as well because he is such an electric player that he's able to do things we haven't seen, from past Miami offenses.
Yeah, stellar player, electrifying. Got to say that Carson Beck, he has come a long way. He has matured in a way that you can see that on the field, that maturation has taken him a long way in the way that he looks at the field, the way he processes, the way he executes. And after a game, um, he conducts himself properly. He's thoughtful. He's ready for a shot at the pros, and it's going to be interesting to see how he stands out and performs in this championship game. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to see how Indiana performs because I like Signetti as a coach.
Mhm.
I like Indiana's quarterback because the guy played at Cal prior to. There's a lot of things to like about Indiana. They're kind of that underdog, and so everybody's been rooting for that underdog
Mhm.
all season. So it's going to be a fun game.
Yeah, I was really, really shocked how Indiana dominated Oregon.
Oh,
And it was from the first play,
yeah,
that pick six.
yep.
Like it was the defender read the play so well, was right there, picked off, and it just snowballed from there. That was a really, really impressive performance overall by the Hoosiers. Fernando Mendoza, once again, they only had a couple incompletions in this game. His throws are just really, really good and like in the right spot. He's rarely off. That's going to be the key to the game is whether or not the trenches, whether or not Ruben Bain and Nakeem Mesidor can get
Yep.
um, to Fernando Mendoza. Now, they didn't really do that in the Ole Miss game. I think they only had one sack. But just it's going to be another key to this game because they're just so good and I just I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think Miami is going to be way more competitive than the other two teams, but right now I feel like you have to give Indiana the edge, but by no means do I think it's going to be a blowout. I mean, we've seen Miami for these last few weeks just ground and pound their way to these victories because of like they've had a good running game. Obviously, I've said it. I don't know how many times. You could probably take your fourth or fifth shot of the night talk about the trenches, but It really is. Games are won in the trenches.
Yeah.
If you can block, especially for your quarterback or your running back, then you're going to be set up for a lot of success.
Spot on, man. It's like it's very simple. Your offensive line, your defensive line are the two biggest keys to success. And you know, when you look at the salaries in the NFL, the salaries for those linemen, I think, needs to go up significantly because those are the guys who are making it happen. If they're not executing, then the rest of it is just, just throw it out because it's not going to work. And, we can see it in the passing game, we can see it in the running game. If you execute well on the offensive line and you open up holes, your running backs are going to be, pounding out a lot of yardage. If you hold that line, um, you will allow your quarterback time to get off a pass. He'll be able to go through his progressions instead of just whipping the ball out there. You'll be able to either go up into a pocket, look around, go through the progressions to find the person that is open. Boom, you got it. But you cannot allow people to come penetrating in and killing your quarterback on a regular basis. So that offensive line is key. Other side of the coin, that defensive line stops the run, puts pressure on the quarterback. I mean, these are key players in football, and they should be respected. They're just unsung heroes. And I think if you start asking people who are some of the names of the offensive linemen and defensive linemen that are playing on their favorite pro team or on their favorite college team, they'll just sort of look at you like, I'm not sure. But we should know that. We really should. We should respect those guys. They're doing a great job. Um, let's in Monday, January 19th, again, 7:30, the championship. That's going to be a fun game to watch, and I think you're right, Will. I think this is going to be one of those games. It's not going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be grinding, and it may not have a very high score. I may be sitting here eating crow on the 20th, but it just strikes me as being a game that is going to be just, there's going to be an advantage maybe purely out of luck or a turnover that comes to play.
Mhm. Right now, as we talk, what I'm seeing is Indiana's a 7.5 point favorite with an over under of 48.5. So they do think this is going to be on the lower scoring side.
Yeah, and I'm telling you this, that if you're a betting person, you want to get a piece of this action because that 7.5 ain't gonna happen. I'm telling you right now, that's insane. Just do not be thrown off by that big score against Oregon. I I read a story, Will. I think that it's so encapsulated how dramatic and crazy that college football is. It talks about 2 and 3 stars beating a team with the bag, Oregon, because man, they got some big money behind them. And we've seen it all year. Texas started out at number one. Boom, where'd they go? Texas Tech is probably the most successful out of the bag teams this year. They went
Hmm.
pretty far. But, everybody else that's got the big bucks behind them, and got all 5-star players. Where are they?
And
It's
and I had this conversation with friend of the show, Chris Peak, the other day, just talking about how Indiana is really kind of a unicorn in
oh,
this.
very.
There teams like Indiana full of not nearly as highly recruited players doesn't happen very often. They're a group of kids, I think their average age is like 23 years old. That's pretty old for college. They've no they've they're the type of team that's gone through just about everything, over the course of their careers, where they're at Indiana or at previous stops. Um, and this is not going to happen very often. Y'all are familiar with Bud Elliott's blue chip ratio. I mean, Indiana is the team that is very late. I mean, if they win, they will be the first team to actually break that since he created it. And I think that it's over a decade old. I don't remember the first year he started doing the blue chip ratio, but it's like if your team is over 50% blue chip, you have a shot at winning the national championship. That's been kind of the okay, and that's been true every year. And like Indiana is probably the biggest threat to it. I know there was a Clemson team, and I think the team that might have lost to Alabama was the first one to really threaten it, but I think Indiana's a greater test of that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to be interesting to see whether Bud Elliott's theory holds water in this particular case. But everything is destined to be proven wrong.
Yeah, trends are made to be broken, just kind of like records.
That's right. Let's look at ACC basketball. Some interesting games. The last for the men, at least, last three games that I had some time to really keep an eye on. That I thought were just real battles, and it tells me a lot. And also, I heard out of the folks who were doing the announcing, they were talking about how much improved the conference is this year and how much more competitive that it is. And these games prove that to me in a nutshell. Duke over SMU, 82-75. Virginia Tech over Cal, 78-75. UNC over Wake Forest, 87-84. These were knuckle biters, man. They were good games. They're very competitive. And I think they're probably a great snapshot of what the ACC is all about this season.
Yeah, no, I'll start with that Duke SMU game. This is a concern for me for Duke. Yes, they can come back and win these games, but they've had a knack lately of getting down big early and having to come back. They were down 11 to nothing in this game. Yeah, they came back, but you're not going to be able to do that all the time. Um, the defense is a concern. It they can't keep getting away with this, and it's kind of known that Cam Boozer's not a great defensive player, so they're trying to hide him in certain matchups. And they obviously he can score. He's a great scorer. He had 18 points in this game. Uh, but then Isaiah Evans, 21 points, had a big game. You don't really expect a lot from Pat Gamba. He had 17 off the bench in this game. Uh, it's just the one of these days, these slow starts are going to come back to bite him in the ass. I know, um, uh, what's his name for Boopy Miller was a game time
Oh,
decision for this game, and he didn't play
mhm.
from what I'm seeing here. And the fact that they still were within reach, that scares me when arguably one of the best players in the league misses a game and Duke still struggles. They did get a great contribution from Jaden Toombs, who had 23 in this game. BJ Edwards 20. They shot a combined 18 to 26 from the field. Those two for SMU, and but the crown of Edwards had 6 turnovers in this game. Like I believe SMU is a tournament team. They look good enough. I mean, once Miller, I think Miller was questionable coming into the game. He'll be fine. Like SMU, I think will be fine unless this ends up being a longer term injury. But the fact that he was questionable coming in that leads me to believe this isn't going to be a long term injury for Miller, and he should be back probably this week.
I found it interesting, and this is analysis from people who cover SMU and some fan comments as well. They all pointed out how close this game was, and they didn't have Boopy, and that was the that was the key point that they were trying to make. Oh well, if we had, well, it doesn't always work out that way. So let's not put all your money on one player turning the tide completely for you. But yeah, that probably would have been a difference maker. Whether or not he would have contributed to a win is anybody's guess. And I think that your comment in the last program and on this in regard to Duke's defense is is very telling, and it's worrisome because you can't be successful without some sort of defense as well as a really high powered offense. I mean, you can put points galore up on the board, but if you're allowing the opposing team to go down and just score at will, then you're not going to lose or you're not going to win. Ultimately, this is, as you said, it's going to catch up with them, and Duke has got to make some adjustments or find some way to implement a defense that is going to be more effective against their opponents.
Yeah, and they've been playing a lot of zone, which is kind of a signal that Shire doesn't really fully trust his defense right now, and it's been kind of like I've talked about their defense of three of the past four games shooting, really struggling defensively. Um, this, like I said, they're going to get. I thought they were going to fall this week, but that second half from Louisville was uncharacteristic. I'll be curious to see how this week goes for them because they have the West Coast trip. They're at Cal and at Stanford.
Mhm.
We just saw Stanford pull off an upset there on their place a week ago. We know they're tough at their place. Cal, we talked about they're a really tough team too. They were right there with Virginia Tech on Saturday.
Yeah.
They beat Notre Dame in that really good game a week ago. Um, they can score. We talked about that game with Virginia Tech, and yeah, it's hard to go cross country and and play these teams, but that's the life. And I think yeah, this and Virginia Tech's been a bit up and down too this year.
Yeah.
We can get, yeah, and I don't know if they're good enough back to Duke. I don't know if they're good enough to beat to lose to these teams. I don't know if they're good enough to beat them. Let me start over. But they're gonna get beaten a couple of times, and I do worry about them long term.
Yeah, that's something they have to be careful. Again, ACC, it's typically one of those things where you know that you can go into anybody's court and probably lose. That's the dynamic aspect of this conference is there's an awful lot of good teams, and if you split the conference, and I think it even goes a little deeper than halfway, to be frank about it, because the more I look at these teams, I'm going, well, I, I see where the cutoff point is, at least in my mind, and but then I see some fluctuation in a couple of those teams that I think are not quite above the cutoff. And I'm going, yeah, those are the teams you want to watch out for because something's going to click somewhere and they're going to sneak up on you.
Hmm.
You may assume that they're not going to be able to take you out because, well, they've lost so many games, this, that,
Yeah,
the other thing. Well, you know, this again, it's the ACC.
yeah.
Keep reminding yourself that over and over every time you get on the court, because if you don't, you're
Hmm.
going to lose to somebody that you would not expect to lose to, or somebody's going to really embarrass you. And I see that coming. Um,
And
there's a couple of games that I see coming that I think are going to turn out to be just that.
and let me just interject. Boston College was in it with Louisville for 32 minutes.
Yeah.
Like they were leading for a lot of that game throughout the first half and early into the second half. It took a run over the final 8.5 minutes for Louisville to finally pull away. I think over the final 8.5 minutes, but Louisville outscored Boston College 22-9. Yeah, you win by 13, but Boston College is bad again this year, and just they were with you for 32 minutes. That's unacceptable.
Yeah.
We've talked about I mean, Wake Forest is a pretty good team. They were right there with North Carolina and was a missed three from going to overtime.
Hmm.
Um, we and that Miami Georgia Tech game was a I mean, Miami won by 10. That game was a lot closer than the score indicates. Miami had to pull away in the final couple minutes of that game. So where the difference is we're not seeing the significant blowouts to like as many. Yeah, we're gonna ignore NC State, Florida State, and whatever,
Yeah.
but for the most part, these aren't significant blowouts. The team, last year these teams might have lost by like 15. Now they're losing by 6.
Then and that's big. I
Mhm.
mean, and as you point out, you start out by being in a competitive game with a team that's down in the lower half of the conference. When
Mhm.
you're at the top tier and you're not making any headway for 30 some minutes, that's a red flag.
Mhm.
In again, it's a conference thing, and it's not just
Mhm.
exclusive to the ACC. I mean, you
Mhm.
can go to any conference and have that issue, but the ACC is finally coming back into its own, and that's the type of competitiveness you can expect within the ACC this season on men's
Mhm.
basketball, and it's exciting. It's fun to watch again. So
Yeah. Can we talk about Clemson for a second?
you may.
Yeah. Clemson is one of those teams that like is really like they've overachieved what I expected. I don't remember what I picked them to finish in the pre-year on the preseason, but I think it was probably about seventh, eighth, somewhere in there. They're
Yeah.
4-0 in the league, 14-3 overall. They won at Notre Dame by 15 on Saturday. Just they're doing it with the like a you don't really know these players because a lot of those players like have graduated and they're just really doing it with a new cast of characters and they're doing some great things. They're up to 29th on Kin Palm. We talked about it. They had the 6-point loss at Alabama and a 3-point neutral court loss to BYU. So they're hanging with everybody.
Hmm.
The, they're they're a team that I think is a one that you really need to keep an eye on as kind of coming out of nowhere. Upcoming, they're going to have They have 2 home games. They've got Boston College and Miami this upcoming week. The game I'm looking forward to them is January 20th against NC State. That game's at Clemson. So,
That'll be hot. That'll be
mhm,
hot. They're getting even with their losses there that you mentioned, those are Q1 losses and
mhm.
they're reasonable losses. And those are pluses for, and people go, well, a loss is not good for you. It's not going to take you
Yeah,
anywhere.
here.
Contraire, my friends, it's a Q1 loss actually,
Mhm.
and depending on how close it is, obviously, but a Q1 loss is actually a plus. So, whereas if you're losing to those threes and fours,
And we should add that the loss to Georgetown, which has now fallen into the Q3 loss category, but they're still 28th in the net because they have 4 quad 1 wins. They're currently 7-2 in the first 2 quadrants. Like I said, they're 28th in the net and sixth best in the ACC. So that tells you, they're having a really good season.
yeah, this is a good thing to see. And as always, we're befuddled by Brad Brunell as a coach. But
Right?
he just keeps pulling stuff out of, I mean, he is a magician. He's got that rabbit so well hid in that hat. I don't
Yeah.
know how he keeps pulling it out.
And we've talked about how like it felt like pre-NIL he wasn't it just didn't feel like he was a great coach, but ever since NIL became a thing, he's really taken advantage of it and has really built some solid rosters.
Yep. And again, people that you don't really know.
Yeah.
So that says a lot. Let's take a look at what's going on with women's basketball. We've got quite a few games. I tell you, the one game that really stood out to me was the Notre Dame and North Carolina game. Notre Dame with a 73-50 win over the Tar Heels. That's a surprising win and a good one for Notre Dame because, as you had pointed out the last time around, Notre Dame has just sort of slipped off the radar there, and you know what happened. And well, apparently they found what they lost because that's a huge win for them. Um, Last time I looked, and while we were recording this, uh, NC State and SMU were the last teams to be playing on Sunday night, and it was ugly. NC State.
91 to 54 was the final.
Well,
So,
there you go. Yeah.
but
Too
yeah, real
much.
quick on that Notre Dame uh UNC game, it's just there aren't enough adjectives to describe the type of ball player Hannah Hidalgo is. I mean,
Oh,
there is not a more complete player in women's basketball. Listen to this stat line today. 31 points, 8 rebounds,
hmm
6 assists, 7 steals. Yeah. And they forced 22 North Carolina turnovers.
wow.
That's how it went. I
That's
mean,
staggering.
yeah. Yeah, they held North Carolina to 414 from 3 in this game. Um, yeah, they're it feels like they're starting to figure things out, and we've talked about teams starting to figure things out. Duke is in the same boat.
Yeah.
But we'll get to them in a second, but it's nice to see Notre Dame kind of steer things in the right direction, I guess you can say, because it feels like their resume has doesn't have a lot on it, and getting a win like this over a really good North Carolina team is exactly what they needed.
I haven't really looked at their net rankings lately. I did last week, but lately, as in the last couple of games, to see where
Here.
they're really stacking up. So, um,
All right, I can tell you right now they are at number 28 in the net.
okay.
Obviously has not updated with today, but this will count as a Q1 win.
Mhm.
Yeah, that they have a Q3 loss, which is kind of a head scratcher, which it's rare for this team. But yeah, I think there's maybe they've started to figure things out now with a win like today. But we'll see.
We will indeed. The other game you just brought up a few moments ago, Duke and Stanford, um, two great teams, and Duke came out of that with a 67-60 win over the Cardinal.
Yeah. Again, a really impressive win for Duke, who's really started to figure things out. They're 6-0 in the ACC now, have not lost in the calendar year 2026, obviously. She had a real impressive day from Delaney Thomas with 19.6 boards. Toby Fournier, 16 points. She had 4 block shots in this game. Um, again, du the Duke defense dominated. They really pulled away. They had a kind of a struggle in the first quarter. Stanford led 15-12 after one, but that's when they kind of just started to figure things out. They really played a really good defensive game. They only Stanford only shot 5 free throws in this game, which is kind of crazy. But Stanford, you've talked about them. They were obviously competitive in this game. The loss drops them to 14-4 on the season, but they're at number 33, and then at Duke's at 24. Um, so yeah, we've talked about this. Just it doesn't feel like the ACC women are as top heavy as they have been recently, but there are still a lot of quality programs here.
Yeah, I think on the women's side, what we've seen with the men in the last couple of years, where teams took longer to develop and started to rise by the mid to late February into early March, when they absolutely needed to start shining for tournament time. I'm seeing kind of the same progression this year for the women. So that tells me that we're going to start seeing some people rising back up to maybe not to the top, but at least to the top of the ACC, and it's going to be a very competitive conference when a tournament when we get down to it. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you one result today that was a surprise to me, and that's Georgia Tech beating Clemson 58-55. Um, Georgia Tech came into this game at 7-10 and was barely in the, I think they were 94th in the net coming into this game, where Clemson was 39th.
mhm.
That's going to be a bad loss on Clemson's resume. Clemson was 4 for 24 from three in this game. Just a rough outing, even though they forced 16 turnovers by Georgia Tech, who had a really big game from Tataya Walker at 22 in the win for the Yellow Jackets. So yeah, like I said, you have to be on your game, and if you aren't, you can easily get picked off, and that's a perfect example of it.
All right, that's a look at football and basketball. A very short edition, and we'll be back here in a couple of days with some more sports action and talking about a little wider variety of what's going on within the ACC. Until then, cheers.
School.
Your source for ACC sports is ACCNation.net. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, and Blue Sky. For more content, be sure to subscribe.